Welcome to my channel. Subscribe and enjoy my new stories every day. When I met Melissa, I felt like I'd won the lottery. She had this warmth about her, a smile that could thaw the iciest heart. We met through mutual friends at a small gathering, and I was instantly drawn to her. Before I knew it, we were building a life together that people around us envied, a beautiful home, 2 kids who lit up our lives, and a bond that felt unbreakable. Our friends called us the power couple, and I believed every word. It wasn't just that we shared laughter, dreams, and moments of pure joy. It was that I thought we shared a truth, a transparency that I never questioned. Years passed, and our lives grew busier. Between work deadlines, managing the house, and juggling parent-teacher meetings, I didn't think much about the little changes. Melissa started coming home later than usual, but she had good reasons. She had been promoted recently, and with that came more responsibility, more meetings, and occasional travel. When she'd tell me she had a last-minute meeting or needed to catch up with friends, I shrugged it off. Why would I suspect anything? I trusted her with everything. But over time, something began gnawing at me, a vague sense of unease that I couldn't place. It was the small things. Melissa would check her phone more often and seemed distracted during dinner. The warmth in her smile had dimmed, and even when she was with me, it felt like part of her mind was somewhere else. On a few occasions, I noticed her phone lighting up with messages from a name I didn't recognize. She'd glance at them and then flip the phone over, saying, "It's just work." I wanted to believe her, and so I let it go. Then came the evening that would shake my entire foundation. Melissa was running late from work again, so I put the kids to bed alone. After they were asleep, I was tidying up the kitchen when her phone buzzed on the counter. I ignored it, but a few seconds later, it buzzed again and then again. Something felt off, so I checked the screen. A message preview glowed on the display from a contact saved as Jason, reading, "Last night was unforgettable. I can't wait for the next time." I felt the blood drain from my face. A dozen rationalizations flooded my mind, maybe it was an inside joke with a coworker or something else innocent. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the case. My chest tightened with an unfamiliar, gnawing hurt. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I told myself I'd wait and confront her when I had more proof. The thought of being wrong, of accusing her unfairly, terrified me. So I put the phone back and waited for her to come home, hoping against hope that this was just a misunderstanding. That night, as I lay beside her in bed, I couldn't bring myself to fall asleep. Melissa had come home late, her eyes tired, but her smile apologetic as she explained that her project had run over time. I forced myself to nod and say I understood, but inside, I was battling a wave of anger, confusion, and betrayal. She fell asleep almost instantly, but I lay awake, replaying the message in my mind, the words embedding themselves like sharp, unwelcome thorns. The next day, my focus shifted. I began to watch her more closely, taking mental notes of every little detail that I had previously overlooked. I noticed how she'd hold her phone slightly closer to her body when she was texting, how her laughter seemed a bit forced, and how she'd slip into another room to take work calls. I wasn't the type to snoop, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. The changes were subtle, but once I started noticing them, they seemed impossible to ignore. One Friday evening, Melissa told me she'd be out with some friends for a girls' night. She promised not to be out too late, so I stayed home with the kids, preparing for a quiet night in. But as the hours dragged on and she still hadn't returned, my mind was in turmoil. I couldn't sit there any longer, waiting like a fool. So I grabbed my keys, telling myself I'd just drive around to clear my head. Somehow, I ended up outside a restaurant downtown, a place we had dined at for anniversaries and special occasions. I don't know what I was hoping for, maybe some ridiculous notion that I'd find her sitting with friends, laughing innocently. But instead, I spotted her, laughing and holding hands with a man who looked nothing like any of her friends. He was tall, with dark hair, and wore an easy confidence as if he owned the place. They looked like they were in a world of their own, completely oblivious to everyone around them. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Watching them together, I felt a cold, burning anger rise within me. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, fighting the urge to burst into the restaurant and confront them. But I stopped myself. I wasn't ready. I didn't want to lose control in public, to make a scene that would haunt me later. Instead, I took a few deep breaths, watching as they left the restaurant, laughing and leaning close as they walked away. That drive back home was the longest of my life. My mind was spinning, filled with images and questions that had no answers. The betrayal felt raw, a wound that I didn't know how to bandage. The next few days passed in a blur. I tried to act normal around Melissa, plastering on a fake smile whenever she was around, but inside, the anger and hurt simmered just beneath the surface. Over the next week, I started preparing. I couldn't let her know I'd found out, not yet. I needed time to think, to plan my next steps carefully. I wasn't going to be the helpless husband left broken in her wake. No, if she was going to betray me like this, I'd make sure that when the truth came out, it would be on my terms. The following week was torture. Every time Melissa left for work, or claimed she was catching up with friends, my mind swirled with images of her and the man I had seen her with. My gut twisted as I tried to focus on my daily routine. There was no avoiding the hurt, but I knew I couldn't confront her without solid evidence, something she couldn't twist or deny. I became a ghost in my own home, observing quietly from the shadows. I started noticing how Melissa would linger just a little too long in front of the mirror before leaving. She seemed more distracted, almost as if her mind was always somewhere else. And that smile she used to wear, the one that used to be for me, now felt like a mask. It was the worst kind of betrayal, subtle and insidious, and it made me feel as though I were losing my mind. One evening, I took the kids to my mother's house for the night. Melissa was working late, so I figured it was the perfect opportunity to search our home without risking her walking in on me. I had no real plan, but I felt desperate to find something, anything, that would give me answers. I started with her closet, sifting through her purses and bags, finding nothing but the usual items. I checked the drawers in our bedroom, under the bed, her bathroom cabinet. After an hour of fruitless searching, I felt like I was on the verge of losing my grip. Was I just being paranoid? Was there a chance that this was all in my head? And then I found it. In the pocket of one of her handbags, stuffed beneath a mountain of receipts and makeup samples, was a folded note. It was crumpled and faintly scented with her perfume. The words were written in a messy scrawl I didn't recognize, "Can't wait for our weekend together." Counting down the days. My blood went cold. She had been planning a trip with him. A weekend, no less. That meant she wasn't just slipping away for stolen moments, she was actively arranging time away from me and our kids to be with him. It felt like the ground beneath me was crumbling. I sat there on the floor, holding the note, feeling numb. The reality of her betrayal was sinking in, hard and fast. But I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. The pain was too fresh, and I didn't trust myself to keep it together. I needed a plan, a way to make sure that when this all came crashing down, I'd be the one standing tall, not broken in the wake of her lies. I stuffed the note back into her handbag, carefully rearranging everything so it looked untouched. Over the next few days, I started to act. First, I went to our bank. We had a joint account, but I also had a savings account I had started long ago, before we were even married. I transferred some money into it every month, just as a precaution. It wasn't much, but it was enough to start with. I began moving funds gradually, a little at a time, hoping Melissa wouldn't notice the small, seemingly random transactions. I didn't stop there. I started reaching out to a few close friends, people I trusted implicitly. My best friend, Chris, had been through a divorce himself and knew what it was like to face betrayal. When I told him what was happening, he was both supportive and enraged on my behalf. "Whatever you need, man," he said, his voice thick with empathy. "If you need a place to crash, or someone to help with the kids, just let me know." With his encouragement, I started looking into legal options. I met with a lawyer and learned what I could about the divorce process, custody, and our financial situation. Each step felt like a weight lifting from my shoulders, as if I were finally beginning to regain control of my life. The lawyer recommended that I gather as much evidence as possible before filing, explaining that it would make everything easier when the time came. So I became even more vigilant. I checked our phone records, scrolling through pages of call logs and text messages. As expected, there were plenty of calls to numbers I didn't recognize, some of which were suspiciously frequent. I also went through her emails on our shared computer, hoping to find more concrete evidence. I knew it was invasive, but at this point, trust was a thing of the past. I was determined to know the truth, no matter how painful it was. It wasn't long before I found something more. One evening, after she had gone to bed, I logged into her email. There, buried in a folder she had tried to hide, were dozens of messages between her and the man I'd seen her with. They weren't explicit, but they were unmistakably intimate. They talked about plans, about missing each other, about stolen moments that were apparently worth more to her than the life we'd built. I felt a sick satisfaction as I printed out every message. Each page felt like a weapon, a shield to protect myself from her lies when the time came. I stashed the pages in a folder and hid them in a place only I knew about. It was all coming together, slowly but surely. Then, one Saturday morning, she told me she was heading to a nearby city for a business trip. She had thrown the excuse out casually, as if I were supposed to believe it without question. But by now, I was done playing the fool. I nodded, pretending to be the clueless, trusting husband I had been before. As soon as she left, I got to work. I called a private investigator, someone my lawyer had recommended. I wasn't sure if I could stomach having her followed, but I needed closure. The investigator agreed to track her movements, discreetly of course, and report back to me. The hours passed slowly that day, each one stretching longer than the last. The kids were with my mother, thankfully, so I didn't have to pretend that everything was normal. I paced around the house, my mind racing with possibilities, dreading the confirmation but knowing I needed it. Finally, that evening, my phone buzzed with a message from the investigator. It was brief but enough to confirm everything. She hadn't gone to a business meeting. She was with him, checked into a hotel, far from where she claimed she would be. I sat down on the edge of the bed, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over me. I had the proof now, undeniable and concrete. It was like a weight had lifted, but the hollow ache of betrayal was still there, digging into me, a reminder of everything I had lost. But I couldn't let it consume me. I had to keep my head clear. I had to stay focused. That night, as I waited for her to come back, I made a decision. This wasn't just going to end with a quiet separation or a polite, "It's over." I was going to make sure she felt every ounce of the hurt she had caused me. She had torn our life apart, ripped our family in two. She'd made a choice, and now she'd have to face the consequences. Melissa returned from her business trip the next evening, stepping through the door with a breezy smile and a lightness that nearly made me sick. She looked refreshed, her cheeks flushed, and she had this easy, relaxed demeanor as she set her bags down. She glanced at me, gave a quick peck on my cheek, and immediately went to find the kids. Watching her as she moved through our home with such ease, such casual confidence, I felt a surge of anger rise up in me. She had no idea that I knew the truth. I had to bite back my words, swallowing down the urge to confront her right then and there. I was preparing for something bigger, something that would ensure she understood the depth of her betrayal. After tucking the kids in, she joined me in the living room, chatting about the business trip and the long hours she had put in. I kept my face carefully blank, nodding along, my mind racing with everything I knew. That night, as she slept beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I thought about our entire life together, the sacrifices, the years of laughter, the nights spent talking about dreams and plans for the future. All of it had led to this moment. I realized I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't even shocked. I felt numb, as if all the pain had finally worn itself out, leaving behind a hardened resolve. The following day, I began setting my plan into motion. The first step was simple, ensuring my own financial security and that of our kids. I met with my lawyer and discussed moving assets, securing accounts, and setting up a trust fund for the children. I knew that once this was all over, there would be no going back, and I wanted to ensure that our kids would be taken care of. Next, I set up a meeting with the private investigator. He handed over a thick envelope filled with photos, dates, and locations, all documenting Melissa's meetings with her lover. It was irrefutable evidence, and as I looked at the pictures, I felt a strange satisfaction. Each image, each timestamp, was a brick in the wall of her lies, a physical manifestation of everything she'd thrown away. The investigator glanced at me sympathetically. "You're handling this well," he said. "Most people in your situation would be falling apart right now." I gave a curt nod. "Maybe I would have, a month ago," I replied. "But now? Now, I'm done with her lies." I filed everything away carefully, making sure it was safe. I knew it would all come in handy soon. The final piece of the puzzle was gathering our friends and family. Melissa and I had planned a dinner party that weekend to celebrate her recent promotion. She'd been excited about it, talking about the menu, the decorations, and the guest list with such enthusiasm that it almost felt real. But that party would be more than a celebration, it would be the grand finale of our life together. She'd never see it coming. The day of the party, Melissa was in her element. She was wearing a dress I'd bought her years ago, a deep emerald green that complemented her dark hair and green eyes perfectly. She flitted around the house, arranging flowers, checking on the caterers, her smile bright and cheerful. Watching her, I felt a pang of sorrow for the woman I thought she was, the person I had trusted with my life. But that person was gone, replaced by someone I couldn't recognize. Our guests began arriving around 7. Friends, family, and a few of Melissa's colleagues from work. The house filled with laughter and chatter, and everyone congratulated Melissa on her promotion, raising glasses in her honor. She basked in the attention, her face lit with a glow that made me wonder, for a brief moment, if maybe there was still a part of her that cared about the life we'd built. I waited until dinner was served. As everyone was enjoying their meals and chatting amiably, I cleared my throat and stood up, tapping my glass to get their attention. The room quieted, all eyes turning toward me. Melissa looked at me with a curious smile, probably expecting me to give a little toast. "Thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate Melissa's promotion," I began, keeping my tone steady. "It's been an incredible journey watching her grow in her career and achieve so much. I wanted to take this opportunity to share something with all of you, something that affects not just me, but everyone who cares about our family." Melissa's smile faltered slightly, her eyes narrowing as she sensed something was off. I took a breath and continued. "As much as tonight is supposed to be a celebration, it's also a night of truth. And the truth is, Melissa has been lying to me and to all of us." There was a murmur of confusion around the table, and I saw Melissa's face turn pale. She opened her mouth, as if to interrupt, but I raised a hand to stop her. "For the past several months, Melissa has been having an affair," I said, my voice loud and clear. Gasps rippled through the room, and Melissa's cheeks flushed with embarrassment and anger. "She's been meeting him in secret, lying to me and to our kids. While I thought we were working on our life together, she was busy building something else entirely with someone else." The room fell silent, all eyes on Melissa, who looked as if she might burst into tears. I pulled the envelope from my jacket and set it on the table in front of her. "I have evidence, photographs, messages, proof of her deception. She's betrayed our family, and I wanted all of you to know the truth." Melissa's face crumbled as she stammered, I can explain, it's not what it looks like. I shook my head, feeling a calm I hadn't anticipated. There's nothing left to explain, Melissa. You made your choices, and now you'll have to live with them. One of her friends reached out to comfort her, but most of the guests were frozen in shock, unable to look at her. I stood there, watching as the reality of her actions hit her with full force. There was no way she could talk her way out of this. Not this time. I turned to our friends and family, who were still staring in stunned silence. Thank you all for coming tonight. I apologize for the scene, but I felt that you all deserved to know the truth. Melissa and I are done. She's made her bed, and now she'll lie in it. With that, I gathered my things, nodding a silent farewell to those closest to me. Without another glance at her, I left the house, feeling a strange sense of relief. For the first time in weeks, I felt free, unburdened from the lies and betrayal that had weighed me down. The life we had built was over, but I was ready to rebuild, to start fresh. As I walked down the driveway, I felt a twinge of sadness for the family we had once been, for the future we could have had. But that future had died the moment she chose to betray me. Now, it was time to turn the page, to let go of the past, and to step into whatever awaited me next. In the weeks following the party, I felt an odd mix of freedom and emptiness. I was officially separated from Melissa, and the initial rush of satisfaction from exposing her betrayal in front of everyone had faded. Life became a series of routines, getting the kids ready for school, working through my days in a fog, and lying awake at night in a bed that felt far too empty. Melissa, broken and humiliated, had moved into a small apartment nearby, close enough to share time with the kids. At first, I held on to my anger, refusing to let her see them without strict rules, but as time went on, I couldn't keep the kids from her. They missed their mom, and no matter what she'd done to me, she was still their mother. So I allowed the visits, though each time they left with her, I felt like a part of me was being wrenched away. Then one night, she called me. I almost didn't answer, the sight of her name flashing on my phone filling me with dread. But something urged me to pick up. She sounded hesitant, her voice soft, almost like the Melissa I remembered from our early years. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, she whispered. For everything. I know I can't fix what I did, but I never wanted things to end like this. Hearing her voice, the sadness in it, cracked something inside me. As much as I wanted to hate her, there was a part of me that still remembered the woman I had fallen in love with, the mother of my children. The rage I had once felt so fiercely had turned into a hollow ache, and in that moment, I found myself saying the words I had never thought I'd say. Maybe we could talk sometime, for the kids' sake. Maybe it doesn't have to end like this. I didn't want her back, I knew that. But the idea of talking, of ending things with some kind of understanding, seemed like it might help close this open wound. She agreed, and we decided to meet at a small cafe the next week. The day came, and I arrived early, sitting by the window, nursing a coffee and watching people pass by. When Melissa walked in, I saw that she looked different, her hair was unkempt, her face pale, and there was a heaviness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. She sat down across from me, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. I know there's nothing I can say to undo what I did, she began quietly. I know you can't forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I'm broken without you and the kids. I thought I could have it all. I don't know what I thought. I swallowed hard, struggling to keep my emotions in check. I trusted you, Melissa. I built my life around you, our family. And you shattered it. Tears glistened in her eyes. I know, and I deserve every ounce of your anger. But for what it's worth, I miss you. I miss us. And I'd do anything to go back and change it. Her words struck a chord in me, and I found myself saying, you can't change it, but maybe we can find a way to move forward. Maybe maybe we can be at peace with this for the kids." She nodded, wiping her tears, and for a brief moment, I felt a flicker of hope. We could never be the family we once were, but maybe we could still find a way to be there for our kids, to support each other without the pain hanging over us. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something close to acceptance. The days passed, and we settled into a new rhythm. Melissa and I didn't talk much, but when we did, it was civil, even warm at times. The kids seemed happier, sensing the shift between us. There were nights when I felt a pang of loneliness, a sense of longing for the life we once had, but I buried it, focusing on the future, on healing. Then, late one night, I got another call. This time, it wasn't Melissa. "Is this Mr. Tomlin?" a woman's voice asked, calm but tense. "Yes, this is he," I replied, feeling an uneasy sensation creep over me. "I'm calling from St. Mary's Hospital. There's been an accident." My heart stopped. "What happened?" I asked, my voice trembling. "It's Melissa. She was involved in a car accident on Highway 26. She's in critical condition. I think you should come right away." I barely remember the drive to the hospital. My mind was a blur of fear, panic, and confusion. I had no idea what to expect, but all the anger and hurt I'd held onto for so long seemed to dissolve in an instant. By the time I arrived, a doctor was waiting for me, his expression grim. "She's lost a lot of blood," he said quietly. "We're doing everything we can, but it would be wise to prepare yourself." I was ushered into a small room, the sterile scent of antiseptics thick in the air. Melissa lay there, hooked up to machines, her face pale and bruised. I sat beside her, feeling helpless, the weight of everything we'd been through pressing down on me like a boulder. Her eyes fluttered open, and for a moment, she looked at me, her gaze filled with a strange mix of sorrow and gratitude. She tried to speak, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry," she managed, her voice weak. I reached for her hand, gripping it tightly. "I know," I said softly, the words catching in my throat. "I know, Melissa." She closed her eyes, a single tear slipping down her cheek. "Tell the kids. I love them." My own tears fell freely as I nodded, unable to speak, my heart breaking for her, for us, for everything we had lost. I stayed there beside her, watching as her breathing grew slower, softer, until finally, the machines went silent. The world felt as though it had stopped. I sat there, holding her hand long after she had gone, struggling to understand how we had come to this. All the anger, the resentment, the pain, it all felt meaningless now. I realized, in those quiet, empty moments, that I had loved her, even through the betrayal. And now she was gone, leaving behind only memories and regrets. I left the hospital that night, feeling hollow, the weight of loss pressing down on me with each step. When I returned home, I sat in the living room, staring at the family photos on the wall. Melissa's smile, so full of life, now felt like a haunting reminder of everything that would never be. The kids would grow up without their mother, and I would carry the ache of her absence with me for the rest of my life. In the end, there was no revenge, no justice, only a tragic ending to a love that had once felt unbreakable. And as I sat there, alone in the quiet of our empty home, I realized that sometimes, the saddest part of betrayal isn't the end of love, it's knowing that even in the end, you still loved them.